going to get into Disney one day because I will always outwork people that are going to go through pain. And that's a great lesson people need to hear. If you watch a documentary about whoever inspires you, if you find someone that's achieved something great, there's only one thing that they have in common. You know what it is? They pushed through the pain. And in life, if you have that perspective that there's going to be pain, you don't have to go through the pain, you grow through the pain.
Welcome to the Better Human Podcast. My name is Greg Witz, and each week we're going to be bringing you some incredible and inspiring guests and topics that are going to take your life to the next level. Thanks for spending time with us. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Yeah, how did it all start with Disney? I mean, was this the plan? Were you an artist? Were you just a creative?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, look, I grew up in New York, so I didn't know any Hollywood people. I didn't know anybody that had a creative job, for that matter.
Right.
I knew people that were doctors and business owners and lawyers, and I just loved to draw as a kid, and I just kept drawing because it was something I loved and something that I saw that I did fairly well compared to other kids I knew. When I was, 10, 11 years old, that's what I wanted to be, an artist. I just drew all the time. And then actually, when I was 11, I saw a movie that is today or this week, 40 years old. I saw the movie E.T. And that's what changed it for me, Greg. I mean, I remember the credits were rolling in that movie. I tapped my mom and I was like, Mom, that's what I want to do someday. My mom was like, what, you want to leave planet Earth in a spaceship? And I went, no. I want to make movies. And so I went to the library, and, my kids don't even know what a library is, right? They get all their info from the internet. But the library in the olden days was a big building, for those kids listening, where you went and got information. So I go to the library and I got books on cameras, lenses, storyboarding. I found out the director of E.T., Steven Spielberg, used to make movies every weekend. So I got my twin sister, my older brother, a film camera, and I started making movies, murder movies, monster movies. I made a kidnap movie once. We tied my sister up to a tree really tight. We go into the house to watch the movie. I still remember my mom going, I like the movie, but where's your sister? I said, well, she's still tied to the tree. What's wrong? So I knew I was going to be a filmmaker. That was my dream until I got to high school. And when I was in high school, I was walking the halls one day and somebody came up to me. I remember, they're like, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? I said, well, I want to be a filmmaker. They're like, no, you don't want to do that. I said, no, yeah, I do want to do that. I go, no, you don't, because if you want to be a filmmaker, you're going to have to move out to Hollywood. And Hollywood is filled with strange weirdos. They looked at me and said, you don't want to end up a weirdo, do you? And I'm telling you, right then and there, I gave up on my dream of wanting to be a filmmaker because one person told me I would end up a weirdo. Oh. And of course, today I do live in Hollywood, and my 4 kids would tell you their dad is a weirdo. So much for that. But at that point in my life, I was so impressionable. And for everyone listening, think about this for a moment. How many times in your life do you have a clear goal on something you want to accomplish? And how often we allow another person to change the trajectory of what our goals and dreams are. They can either elevate us to believe that we can accomplish something, or they tell us from a cynical point of view, well, that's not for you. Well, I gave up on that dream. And my parents were like, well, what else do you want to do? I said, well, I'll go back to drawing. And, Greg, I have unbelievably supportive parents. A lot of parents don't support their kids in the arts. My parents really did. As a matter of fact, they hired an art teacher to come to our home, and she would teach me every week drawing. I remember her saying, Saul, drawing is about seeing. You have to develop your eye to see the world a certain way. It's not about copying the world. It's about what lens do you choose to look at the world. Amazing teacher. And we were drawing only from life, drawing people, learning charcoal, oils, acrylic, pencil. And she noticed one day that I was terrible at drawing hands because I never put hands on any of the figures I was drawing.
Right. Well, hands is a difficult thing to draw.
It's exactly right. They were very difficult. And it's exactly what I said to her. I said, look, it's too hard. She goes, oh, okay, here's your homework for the next 6 months. You're going to draw a hand from a different position every single night before you go to bed. And I did that. And in 6 months, I got really good at drawing hands. And, she taught me just an incredible tool for life. And that is, we need to get out of our comfort zones in order to turn our weakness into our strength. Greg, I grew up in the 90s. My hero was Michael Jordan. I mean, boom, the best, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And if anyone listening thinks it's LeBron James, well, there might be another podcast you can listen to, because this one's not for you. So Michael Jordan, the man, first year in the NBA, Michael is already scoring machine. He's already Air Jordan. A sports writer comes up to Michael after one game and says, Michael, you're a scoring machine. You're amazing. But you know what? Your defense is not so strong. You should work a little harder on your defense. You know what Michael could have said to the guy? Dude, I just made $1 million playing basketball the last 5 minutes. I'm going to listen to you. Your kid probably wears my Air Jordan sneakers. You probably have my Jordan posters up over your bed. I'm not going to listen to you, but that's not what Jordan said. In Jordan's mind, he heard one thing. Something I'm doing is giving this guy the perception that I don't have a defensive game. I guess I better work harder on defense. And he did. And next year in the NBA, one player was named Defensive Player of the Year. Number 23, Michael Jordan. If we are going to be great in life, we need to know what our weaknesses are, which we do, but we need to be so motivated to turn them into our strengths. What a great teacher I had. Amazing, right?
I just had a very similar conversation with actually an introvert today, a client who's introverted, and like their company's come and said, look, we need you to like be more like outgoing and energetic, and we need you to present better. The guy heard, we need you to be funnier, we need you to be extroverted, and go into the whole conversation. No, there's an acknowledgement or an opportunity for you to go, you know what, I need to learn some presentation skills.
Yeah.
Let me go out and learn that, and the access is there. But I just want to come back to that time in your life where that one person could have derailed you. How did you come back? So, I mean, you went down the drawing road. You did if I'm going to do a movie reference, your teacher made you paint the fence, right?
Yeah.
Car.
That's right.
Before you know it, you're the Karate Kid.
That's right. Right. Doing the discipline, right, Greg?
The 10,000 hours, there was an opportunity for you to, work that yin and yang, get better on the other side, because we all sort of lean into. But how did you know, or when was that moment where you came back into movies and stuff?
Great.
Yeah. Bit of a different direction. But
yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Well, here's what it was. My junior year in high school, I went to the movies and I saw another movie that changed my life. I saw a movie here. I'll sing this song and see if you can tell me what it is. Okay. Here we go. The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake. You dream about there you go. The Little Mermaid. Right. I had to do my Sebastian impression for your audience.
Sebastian's awesome, right?
Thank you, man. So I see The Little Mermaid. And I, like most of the world, was blown away by that movie. That movie changed everything. By the way, the Disney company's animation division was going to close down right before that. Walt had died. They were making dark movies like The Black Cauldron. They were going to shut down the division. And The Little Mermaid started the golden age of animation, started it all over again. Huge hit. But when I saw that movie, I saw on the screen two passions: my love of drawing, my love of filmmaking, put them together, animation. And plus, I found out that Disney had a studio in Orlando, Florida. I don't have to go out to LA. So there I was, junior in high school, and I knew exactly what my dream was. I had the clarity. My dream was to become a Disney animator. I just had a major problem. I had no idea how to do it. So often I meet people, I'm like, what's your goal? What's your dream? And some of them are lucky enough to know that. I ask them, how will you accomplish it? Sometimes I get blank looks. Look, today you want to be a Disney animator. It's simple. Go to Google and you type in, how do you become, and you'll find out. Back then, no Google. Right. So what did I do? I told my mom, and my incredibly supportive mom took me on a trip from New York to Disney World, literally walking me around Disney World. I get goosebumps even telling this story right now. I still can't believe she did this. It's incredible. Like walking me around Disney World, asking all the Disney employees, she's asking all the cast members, excuse me, my son wants to be a Disney animator. Can you help? It was actually very embarrassing. We're getting on the It's a Small World boat ride. We're stepping on that boat, and the lady at Disney's like, how many in your party? We're like 2. We're getting on the boat. My mom's like, by the way, my son wants to be a Disney animator. Can you help him? The lady's like, ma'am, this is a boat ride? Like, what do you think?
I work in a theme park.
Right. What do you think? Right. So we go through the boat ride, and the lady says, look, if you want your son to work at Disney, he's got to go to the Disney casting building. It was 4 minutes away from where we were in Disney World. So we drive there. And can you imagine how whimsical and imaginative a Disney office building is? It was incredible. Wow. I remember the doorknobs were themed to look like the ones from Alice in Wonderland. They were made out of bronze, the ones that talk, right? I open up those doorknobs. And I'll send you an image of that, Greg, and you can post it on your Instagram so everyone can see. I'm not making this up, people. This is real. I open the doors. I walk into the atrium, and there's gold statuettes of Mickey, Donald, Pluto, Goofy. Even the air in that lobby was like you could smell it. It was like pixie dust in the air. It was just special, sweeter, you know? Right. And then painted on the ceiling, going up over this huge ramp that you had to walk up, was Peter Pan and Wendy flying off to Neverland. And I was like, that's where I want to go. I want to go to Neverland. So I sit there for the interview, and the lady's like, hi, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, I want to be Disney animator. She goes, well, we don't hire those here. I'm like, well, who do you hire? She says, well, we hire people that work the rides, people that make the Dumbo ride go up and down, or that make the teacups spin around. I'm like, that's not really what I want to do.
Right.
She goes, well, hold on a second. She walks out, comes back in, what seemed like a lifetime later, probably about 4 minutes, and she hands me a piece of paper. That piece of paper was the most valuable piece of paper I have ever held in my hands, other than my wedding contract, in case my wife is listening, just so you know, honey. You know what that paper was? It was a list of 8 schools, 8 art universities that Disney recruits their artists from. She says, if you want to be a Disney animator, you need to go to one of these schools. Boom. That was it. You know, you go to a great restaurant, you taste an unbelievable dessert, tiramisu, creme brulee, whatever you like. You want to make it at home? Well, you can do it if you have the recipe. Well, that's what that paper was. It was the recipe. And in my head, I heard it as an equation. Saul plus go to one of these schools will equal dream of becoming a Disney animator. Boom. Now I had the clarity. Now I knew how.
That's amazing. So, by the way, you know, I was thinking as you were sharing your story, how impactful and influencing movies are, specifically if you grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and
right,
the as you said, the golden era of like animated videos that, like, you know, I couldn't wait when my kids were born. Like, I couldn't wait to watch Lion King, Little Mermaid, you name it.
But you're right, they really sculpted a lot of our childhood, right?
Sure,
they really made an impact.
Right.
Yeah, those are the movies.
As you said, we didn't have Google. We didn't have the internet. So, you know,
we didn't have Netflix. We didn't have Hulu. We didn't
nothing. But
I mean, Greg, how often I'm sure you do this too. You tell your kids, first of all, I tell my kids, not only, first of all, when I was growing up, there was no DVDs, there was no VHS. I'm gonna go back a little bit. The only time you were ever to watch a movie was either in the theater, and once you saw a movie in the theater, you would never see it again, ever. By the way, the only time you would see it is if the movie became a classic, like Sound of Music or something like that, and they would play it on TV once a year. That's it. Right. And if you weren't watching at that moment, you didn't see that movie. Right. But Disney movies, they never played them on TV, barely ever again. You never saw them again, right? And by the way, I also tell my kids, we had like 2 or 3 channels. This is before cable. And when you wanted to change the channel, what did you have to do, Greg?
You have to get up and you have to walk over to the
You had to get up. I mean, you should, Greg, my kids look at me like, what? Is this the 20s, the 1800s? Like, you had to get up and actually turn. I remember when we would get in trouble, my parents would take the controller thing off the TV. Did you ever, or you'd lose it?
Lose the knob, and you'd be like, but you could still, if you squeezed hard enough.
With the wrench, with the pliers.
You could exactly turn the TV to the channel.
And my dad would forget where the thing was, and he'd just keep the pliers on top of the TV. And that became the new controller until we got in trouble. Then he would just go hide those, and then we were all screwed. So look, you know, I ended up getting that goal. I knew where I wanted to go. Right. And I went to one of these schools in Columbus, Ohio, the Columbus College of Art and Design. And I remember first day walking into that school, I was surrounded by Disney nerds. Everybody wanted to work at Disney. As a matter of fact, a week into school, they had a Disney representative come from Disney World. He was one of the original animators on Sleeping Beauty. He was in his 60s. His name was Bill Matthews. He gets up on a stage in the auditorium. It's the first time I saw the entire school. Every freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, 750 students were in there. And he looks out to us and he says, before I begin, let me ask you, how many of you want to work at Disney? Every hand went up. He goes, just so you know, out of the 700 of you that are in this room, maybe, just maybe 4 of you will ever work there. That's how competitive it is. Yeah, and when he said that, I thought only one thing. I wonder who the other 3 are going to be.
Amazing.
right? Because look, in life, we either believe in ourselves that we can accomplish or we don't. And for whatever reason, Greg, at that point in my career, in my life, I believed in myself. And then he goes, if you want to work at Disney, you got to get the internship. No internship, no Disney. And if you want the internship, here's what you need. And I'm like sitting on the edge of my seat listening. Like, this is the answer key, right?
Give me the checkbox, right? Give me the
Yeah,
list.
tell me what I got to draw. He goes, you need 25 pages filled with hundreds of drawings of figures and animals, life drawings of humans and animals, no cartoon characters, no Mickey Mouse. I want to see life drawing. That's what we want to see, that you can draw people and animals from life moving. Boom, that was it. I signed up for figure drawing classes. Remember the first week I went to a party, and there was a guy at this party in the corner with a sketchbook drawing people drinking beer out of a funnel, right? Remember those days, Greg?
I do.
If our kids are listening,
I never
we never did it. If our kids are listening, we never did it. But, so I asked this guy, and I'm like, let me ask you, what class is this for? Why are you drawing someone drinking beer? He goes, this isn't for a class. I go, so why are you drawing right now? He goes, because I want to get better. His name was Andy. And by far, as a freshman, the guy was the best artist in the school because he never stopped drawing. And I will tell you, he soon became my best friend. And just me being friends with a guy like that made me a better artist, because who we choose to be friends with actually affects who we become.
That's
right.
Why you want to play golf with better golfers, right?
There you go.
I guess I'm listening to your story, and your story is like amazing, of like the people that have been in your life that have either supported, influenced, pushed, guided, and it began with your mom, right? So I was thinking about, like, as you're sitting in the auditorium and you're thinking who else the other three are going to be, and there's just the self-belief that you've got. Must have come from some of that experience with your mom, obviously, right? Being like, all right, we'll jump in and we'll take off to Disney World right now. We'll walk into a casting building.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Do it. And then the other side of, like, you've either got a horseshoe up your rear, or as you say, what we put out into the universe and the energy and the exercise is what we attract back. And it sounds like you've been extremely fortunate with some people around you.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can tell you, I remember being freshman in school, in college, and it would be like 10 o'clock at night, and Andy and I would just finish our homework, and we'd take our sketchbooks and we'd walk through the lobby, because we're going to go draw around Columbus, Ohio at night. What are we going to draw? Anything we could see. Light posts, cars, whatever, people at the bus stop. And I remember walking through the lobby and stepping over the bodies of all the students that were sitting there eating pizza, watching The Simpsons, because that's what you did in the 90s when you were in art school. You ate pizza and you watched The Simpsons, right? Nobody had a TV. Nobody had a device in their rooms. You just watched it in the lobby. Right. And I just remember that feeling, stepping over their bodies, of like, when they're done their homework, they're going to sit and eat pizza and they're going to watch TV. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep drawing. And I really became a much better artist because of Andy. And, sophomore year, I got my best drawings together and I put them in a portfolio and I sent them to Disney. Now, I didn't expect to get in the first time. I just wanted to go through the process. Right. And I remember, like, a month later, I get an envelope on Disney stationery. It's got that gold leaf Mickey embossed in the envelope. My name is typed on the front. Like, wow, the Disney company knows I'm alive. They printed my name on an envelope. That was pretty cool. I open up the envelope. I got my mom on the phone. She's like, honey, you're going to get in. I'm like, Mom, you need to say that. You're my mom. But hold on a sec. I open up the letter. It says, Saul, thanks for sending your portfolio in, but unfortunately, you didn't make it. All right. So I got rejected. Look, I didn't expect to get in the first time. Like I said, I put that up over my desk. That was inspiration. People were coming into my room. They're going, wow, Blinkoff, you got a letter from Disney. I felt lucky. Right. Another year goes by, Greg. Andy and I drawing nonstop. I remember one day, got to share this story with you. This was a monumental moment for me. It was one of the coldest days in Ohio, freezing, bitter cold. And Greg, you grew up where?
I grew up in Canada. So
in Canada, right? So
South Africa, then Canada. So
right.
I came from a warm climate, then moved to a cold climate. I've just come back to a warm climate again. So I
that's
know
right. You know what I'm talking about. You know how cold it is when you put on scarves and all that stuff, and you're still freezing, right? So it was that kind of day. And 15 of us went to the zoo for a school project to go draw animals, because Disney wants to see you draw animals. The second we get to the zoo, we go into a cafe. It was a Wendy's cafe. And it's so freezing. We're all getting hot drinks and warm drinks and stuff. After about 5 minutes, Andy and I sharpen our pencils. We go out into the zoo. We're going to go find an animal to draw. And, sometimes you go to the zoo, let's say you're going to draw the elephants or the lions, and they're not really out at that moment. You never know what you're going to get. Right. But we happened to come upon the best day ever to draw elephants. There was an elephant who's just literally walking back and forth, doing the exact same movement, just walking back and forth, his head, his overlapping ears. It was amazing. And someone who's studying animation, that's an amazing opportunity when an animal's repeating a movement. So Andy and I stood there freezing, drawing that elephant for 45 minutes. Afterwards, we're like, oh man, we got to get on the bus. We get on the bus. I open up my sketchbook. I'm showing Andy what I drew. He's showing me his. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, man. Then I saw the other kids. And I'm like, hey, where were you guys? We never saw you guys at the elephants. What animals were you drawing? This guy looks up to me and he goes, oh, well, we never left the Wendy's. I'm like, who never left? He goes, well, none of us did. I said, why not? He goes, well, we couldn't leave. I said, what do you mean you couldn't leave? He goes, well, it was too cold. Huh. I'm like, oh, it was too cold. You mean it was too painful? It was at that moment that I realized, yeah, exactly, Greg. It was too hard, right? I realized at that moment, I'm going to get into Disney one day because I will always outwork people that are going to go through pain. And that's a great lesson people need to hear. If you watch a documentary about whoever inspires you, if you find someone that's achieved something great, there's only one thing that they have in common. You know what it is? They pushed through the pain. And in life, if you have that perspective that there's going to be pain, you don't have to go through the pain. You grow through the pain.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. You grow through the pain instead of go through the pain. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It was hard, but I love that feeling of knowing that I really did work hard at something and then I outworked other people that I could handle it. So Andy and I get our portfolios together. We send them in. And 2 weeks later, I'm home during Christmas break, my junior year, and I got a call and it's Andy. I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's like, Blinkoff, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what am I not going to believe? He goes, I just got a call from the Disney studios. I'm like, really? And he goes, I got it. I said, you got what? He goes, I got the internship. I'm like, congratulations. I couldn't believe it. I was talking to somebody that got in. He goes, but you didn't hear yet, did you? I'm like, no, but they could be trying to call me right now. I got to hang up. We didn't have call waiting back then, right? Remember those days, Greg?
Yeah, it was beep, beep.
Right. So I hang up the phone. I'm pacing in the dining room back and forth. My mom comes in at that moment. She's like, honey, what happened? I'm like, Mom, Andy got in. She's like, oh, they're going to call you any minute. And the phone's not ringing. So you know what I did? Picked up the phone, dialed the head of Disney myself. Who does that? Well, I did. Because when there's something you want in your life, you will do anything to get it. Right. You know, I remember when I was about 11 or 12, growing up in New York, I told you I'm a big Michael Jordan fan. When Michael Jordan came to play the Knicks, and it literally felt like it was him versus the Knicks, right? It wasn't the Bulls versus it was Michael Jordan. And before one of these games, my brother and I snuck down right next to the court, and I'm watching Michael Jordan dribble the ball with those breakaway sweatpants with the buttons. Right. He's got that game focus, right? The tearaways, you got it. Right. And dude, he had this focus on his face like I'll never forget. He's just dribbling the ball, chewing his gum, you know. And I said to my older brother, Jay, I must have been 11 or 12. I said, Jay, I'm going to go out on the court. I'm going to go meet Michael Jordan right now. My brother's like, you ain't going, no. Before he could finish that sentence, I walked out on the court. I'm looking right up to Michael Jordan. And I said, hi, Mr. Jordan. And he said to me, quote, yo, how you doing? End quote. And he shook my hand, which had all his sweat on it. I never washed. Still has that number 23 smell. But look, you know the reason I walked out there? That's right. You know why I walked out there? Because when there's something you want in your life, you will do anything to get it. We got to get out of our comfort zones. So I called the head of Disney.
Good for you.
And I said to him.
So tell me, so did you call the head of Disney? You got through to the head of Disney?
Yeah, I got him. The head of that division, I got him. And I said, hi, my name is Saul Blinkoff. And he goes, oh, Saul, I have your name on a list here. I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, I'm sorry you didn't make the internship.
No.
Yeah. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, I'm sorry you didn't make it. I said, well, what about Andy? He goes, yeah, he made it. You didn't. I was like, oh, okay. And I hung up the phone, and that was one of the most bittersweet moments of my entire life. I mean, sweet because I was happy for my best friend, but bitter because my dream was shattered. Yeah. And, you know, Andy's going to Disney World. Greg, what do they call Disney World? The happiest place on
the world.
on Earth.
Earth.
On earth. I like how you're going. They probably appreciate that you say the universe, but yeah, they say the happiest place on earth, right? Which is a great tagline for your place. They're basically saying you could live in Costa Rica. It's beautiful. You could live in Hawaii and you'll be happy, but you won't be the happiest. Now, the only place you can be the happiest is in Disney World. And Andy's going to sunny, beautiful Disney World, happiest place on earth. I'm going back to Ohio in the wintertime, what I thought was the most depressing place on earth. And when I get to school, I'm walking the halls and people are coming up to me. They're like, Blinkoff, what are you doing here? I thought you would have gotten it. Oh, you didn't make it. Oh, where's Andy? Oh, he got in. Wow, cool. Oh, you're friends with the guy that got into Disney? Cool. Gonna shake your hand. I mean, I became known as a guy who didn't get what he dreamed about, what he really, really wanted. And I felt like a loser. And I'm telling everyone listening right now, if you ever have a moment in your life when you do want something really badly and you don't get it repeatedly, and you feel like a loser, you feel like that black cloud is over your head, do what I did, and that feeling will go away in a second. I came up with the greatest tool to take that feeling away. You know what I did? I gave up. I gave up on the entire dream. That was it for me. Instead of wanting something, don't want it anymore. That was it.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt, and thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you like today's episode and you want to learn more about some of our programs like the Better Leader program that can change your life, go ahead and click the link below.
I appreciate what you just said, which is in the emotional, being emotionally torn between your best friend and being truly happy, authentically happy, because we could fake that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then trying to redefine, redescribe. I mean, it must be one of those moments in life, which is, have I done everything for so long wrong? You know, I had a little bit of that. I've had that feeling with my business, where you come to these moments, which is this the right decision? Am I moving in the right direction? Is this the right path? Right. So you give up, right? And do you truly give up? I mean, can you even give up knowing the fact that this has been something that you've wanted for so long?
I gave up.
Yeah.
I gave up because you know why? Because the way I saw it is like reality set in. It's one thing to be a dreamer, but dreamers usually they tell you like you're not living in reality. You know, dreamers, your head's in the clouds. Reality set in. Reality was, by the way, you walk into a Disney theme park, it's not real. Mm-hmm. And you let yourself imagine, you let yourself believe for the day or two. But after some point, you're going to have to walk down Main Street again. You're going to say goodbye to that castle and you're back in your real world. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what happened to me metaphorically in my mind is I'm like, my head's been in Disney World. It's not real. Like reality was Andy was an awesome, talented artist and I was just average. And I really firmly believe that each one of us, every single person in the world has what I call that shoulder angel and that shoulder devil. That shoulder angel telling you you can be a dreamer. That shoulder angel telling you can aspire to greatness, change the world. The world needs you. You're unique. You're special. Then there's that shoulder devil telling you, who do you think you are? Let me tell you who Netflix specials are for. They're not for people like you. They're for people like Michael Jordan or Steve Jobs. Everybody, it's amazing. Like I have 4 kids. And if you ask a room full of 18-year-olds, 16-year-old teenagers. I do this all the time. I speak all around the world and I ask this to high school kids. If you get high school kids in the room, 100 kids, and you ask 116-year-olds, how many of you are artists? Do you know how many hands would go up? Probably about 4.
I was going to say 10%.
Not even. Maybe 4 students. And by the way, there's probably a couple more students that would maybe want to put their hand up, but they see the other kid put it up. They're like, well, that kid's the real artist. So I'm not putting my hand up next to them. Let me tell you something. If you could rewind the clock to when they were 4 years old and you asked the question, how many of you are artists? Every hand went up. What changed? What happens? Because what happens along the way is we see other people accomplish things that are doing it perceivably better than us. Mm-hmm. And we start to redefine ourselves as, I'm not that guy. I'm not that girl. That's not for me. That's for them. Mm-hmm. The truth at the end of the day is that we're not in competition really with anyone. Each one of us has a unique purpose because we're unique, period. There's no 2 people in the world that are the same, which means there's no 2 people that have the same purpose. But at that point in my life, I gave up. A week goes by. A buddy calls me up and says, Saul, I got tickets to go see a movie. You want to go? I'm like, I'm not in the mood. He's like, but you love movies. I'm like, nah, and I'm not in the mood. He goes, but they're free tickets. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go. So I go to the third movie that changes my life. I see a movie. It's a true story about a guy who is 5 feet tall. He doesn't have an ounce of athletic ability, and he wants to play football at Notre Dame. What movie is it?
It's I want to say Ricky, but it's not Ricky.
It's not Ricky. You're close though, man.
With an R. It's
You're right. Okay, I'll put you.
Matt Damon played the character.
No, Sean Astin.
Sean Astin played the character.
Yeah, the movie is called. Am I giving it away?
No, go for it.
It's called Rudy.
Rudy, that's right.
There you go.
With an R.
Right. And have you ever showed that movie to your kids, by the way, Greg? You got to do it.
But you've just reminded me, and they're at the age now that like they could appreciate watching.
Excellent family movie. Kids over 10, 11 years old love it. Yeah. And anybody who's listening who hasn't seen that movie, that's on your inbox for today. I mean, you got to watch that movie. Shut off the phone, shut off your lights, pull up a couch and go see the most inspiring sports movie or one of the most inspiring films for that matter ever made. Mm-hmm. And it's a true story about a guy who's not athletic and he wants to play football at Notre Dame. Let me tell you, if you were friends with the real Rudy Rudiger, this is a true story. If you were friends with him and he told you his dream was to play football at Notre Dame, you know what you would have told him as his friend? Dude, I love you. Get a new dream. Right. And Rudy's like, oh yeah, well, we'll just see about that. And he tries to get into Notre Dame. And you know what happens? Rejected. And tries a second time. Rejected. Third time? Rejected. But fourth time, if you look at the movie poster for the movie Rudy, it says, when people tell you dreams don't come true, tell them about Rudy. He gets in. And I'll tell you, tears were streaming down my face watching that movie because I thought one thing: if an unathletic guy could get into Notre Dame with an insane amount of hard work, then what I thought was an untalented artist could get into Disney with an insane amount of hard work. And I vowed to never give up again. That was it. I was re-inspired. By the way, you know what I did? I called the next day. I called that same guy at Disney. I asked him 2 questions. The first question I asked him is, how close was I to getting in? Like, where did I rate up?
Right.
He said, Saul, we got 3,800 portfolios from around the world. We picked 17 for the internship, and you made it to number 20. What? I missed it by 3. That's it. Do you know how many times in our lives we could be so close to achieving something? We feel we're miles away, and all we needed to do was push a little more. And then I asked him the second question: why didn't I get in? What was missing? Because what it means to be human is you're going to fail. And if you fail and you find out why, that's the answer key to growing. And he told me, can I be honest? I'm like, please. He goes, you need more dynamic perspective in your drawing. Don't just draw people or animals from wherever your eye line is. Like, go down and look up, or stand on a stool and look down. Give us something dynamic. Boom. Answer key. I go to the zoo. I start drawing animals. I went to draw giraffes, and I asked the zoo, can I draw your giraffes from up on that scaffold when you're feeding them? They bring me backstage. I drew a giraffe looking down. How cool is that? Like, they've never seen that before in a portfolio.
There's a great meme, by the way, of a giraffe painting a lion. Have you seen this?
No, really?
I'll see if I can pull it up.
Wait, it's animated or it's real?
No, it's an animated drawing. Here, let me see if I could pull it up. Giraffe painting lion, and the whole message is it's all about perspective. And there's 2 shots. There's shot number 1 that looks from. Here we go. I got it. I'll appreciate
that. Sounds really fun.
It's by the way, it's very inappropriate, but I think you can handle it. Here we go. Giraffe painting a lion, all about perspective. Can you see that? So for the audience, the lion is looking beautifully.
Isn't that great? Who came up with that? How does people's imagination work?
Right. And the giraffe is painting him from the top, which doesn't look exactly like a lion. So.
Isn't that something? It's all about perspective, right?
Perspective. But, it was funny because you were talking about hard work earlier. And I was going to say, like, in all the stories you were talking about, Jordan, Rudy, anyone that's ever made it, there's a theme to that, which is like, I was rejected, I failed, I fell, I worked, but I kept on getting back up. And as you were sharing your story and you were like, I gave up, I was like, oh no, this is the part where like you shouldn't. This is the part that you got to push through. So you push through. And by the way, I love the fact that you call, because Most people won't. And even in today's world, the importance of picking up the phone, the importance of reaching out, the importance of going, hey, by the way, tell me, what do I need to do to make this happen? You know, maybe it's a lost art. People aren't asking for that guidance and help.
Yeah.
Instead,
Yeah,
people
exactly.
will give us the answers, you know. In fact, there's a new term today called learnability. That's what
Mm,
corporate loves, right?
love it.
Are you hiring people with learnability? And I appreciate it because it actually doesn't come from corporate, but corporate's starting to adopt it, which is the greatest asset someone can come to work with is their ability to learn, or not ability, their willingness to
Oh
learn.
yeah.
Right? My
You
motivation.
know, I'm a producer at DreamWorks now, and at the beginning of the show, I worked. We started about 4 years ago. It's a Madagascar show, preschool show called Madagascar: A Little Wild, and I had to hire about 8 storyboard artists. For those that don't know, storyboard artists are those artists that draw the panels before you animate. It's like a comic strip. You draw out the action that's going to happen, and you get that approved by the directors and producers before you start animating. And when I had to hire a revisionist. That's the entry level storyboard artist. That's not even the storyboard artist. That's the person who wants to be a storyboard artist one day, but right now they'll work for a storyboard artist who's thumbing them out, drawing them out rough. And then the revisionist will come and tighten up the drawings a little bit to help them out. So I was looking at portfolios from people from Disney and Pixar. I mean, top artists. Then I get this one guy's portfolio. He comes in, I open up his portfolio. His name is Travis. If he's ever listening, he'll probably be a little embarrassed. I'm telling the story, but I think he'll like the ending. Travis comes in and I look at his portfolio. Before I open up his portfolio, I look at his resume. I'm like, where does he come from? Does he come from Pixar or Disney? No, he's never worked in animation before, like nothing. What was he doing for his full-time job at that moment today that he had to leave lunch to come to the interview with me at DreamWorks? He works at a LASIK eye surgery clinic. He's not even making a career in art. And I soon find out that he left his trajectory. He was going to be a lawyer, leaves law school, tells his parents, I want to make it as an artist one day, becomes self-taught on the internet, does everything he can, and shows me his portfolio. And I'm thinking in my head, like, how good can this guy really be? And I open it up. And it was much better than I thought. It wasn't awesome, but it was much better than I thought. But let me tell you, the guy had a fire in him like it's so rare. He was hungry. He had what you called learnability. He had it like no one's business. And you know what? I hired him. And can you imagine? He told me later, it was amazing when he called his parents and said, Mom, Dad, someone's paying me to make art. DreamWorks Animation just hired me for my first job. And let me tell you, Greg, after one day at DreamWorks, he comes into my office. He's like, tell me what I can do to get better. Tell me what I can. And I started giving him assignments to do just on the side. I'm like, dude, go watch Goodfellas. Pick a scene, like the scene when they go through the club, and thumbnail it out, storyboard it out, draw it out, find a chase sequence like the Ferrari sequence in The Rock. Remember that movie with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage, right? I'm Stanley Goodspeed, but of course you are, right? Remember that movie?
I do. I love
The Rock. Go check out that.
I love movies. I could sit on the couch for hours.
Yeah.
Movie after movie after movie, or show
right.
After show.
And that's what I told him. I'm like, take movies you like and start storyboarding them and go learn. And every single day he would come in and say, what can I do next? What can I do next? And in a couple of months, we hired him as a storyboard artist. And today, we just finished with our board artist. Today, he's a storyboard artist at Disney and one of the best, because it's just what you said. Is it teachability? Is it learnability? Do not stand on the shoulders of where you've come from and go, now I'm finally there. Right. I heard a beautiful quote once. It was, we're not human beings, we're human becomings. The goal of life is never to be, it's to become. And that is an endless pursuit of growing. Because once you achieve the top, there's nowhere to go. Then right. What are you alive for? Right? So that was it. I saw that movie, Rudy. It inspired me. I called up Disney. I found out that I had to work on those dynamic drawings. And I sent a new portfolio in. And a month later, I get a call, and it's Andy on the phone. I'm like, hey, man, what's up? He's like, Blinkoff, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what am I not going to believe? He goes, they built a brand new wing on the studio for the new interns coming in. I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, you deserve to be in there. I'm like, thanks, man. He goes, but guess what else they did? I'm like, what? He goes, they put up a piece of paper with a list of the next interns. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you're on the list. I said, what? He goes, you did it. I'm like, thank you. He's like, what are you thanking me for? You did it. I'm like, wow. I hang up the phone. I go over to my tape player. Some of you don't know what tapes are. They play music. And at the top of my lungs, it's the circle of life and it moves. I'm like, please. I call up my mom. I tell my parents, it happened when you wish upon. I got in. I
Amazing.
traveled to Disney World, happiest place on earth. Boom, I get to the airport. There's a guy with a sign with my name on it. Wow, I've arrived. It's got Mickey Mouse pointing to my name. He drives me to the Walt Disney Studios. He drives me in there. I walk under a sign that says artist entrance. I'm like, holy cow, it's real. Maybe that dreamer is going to have something real. Maybe I can live in Disney World. Maybe I can have my dream. Brings me into a room and there's all these animation desks. And in the corners, this big wooden animation desk. This is before Pixar, before computer animation even existed. And in the corner on this desk is my name, Saul Blinkoff, kid from New York. And everybody listening, when you hear this story, I don't want you thinking for a second, oh, you know who's the story I just heard today? I heard a story about a really talented artist that got his dream of working as a Disney animator. That is not what you heard. You heard a story about an artist who was actually the worst artist in his school. I'm telling you, on day one, freshman year, I may have had a heart on fire and a dreamer, but I was in reality one of the worst artists in this school. But let me tell you, nobody wakes up great at anything. When you hear this interview, write that down. Take out a piece of paper, write that down. Nobody wakes up great at anything. Michael Jordan didn't become Michael Jordan because he was talented. He became Michael Jordan because he took 800 jump shots every day
And
before breakfast.
Right? Many times, which
The only
brought him
that's
to do
right.
those
That's
800.
right. The person that's in our way of us achieving everything that we want is us. You have to look at ourselves real and go, yeah, I'm not great yet, but man, I'm going to take those small steps. I'm going to take that one rung of the ladder at a time. You know where you want to go. You got the clarity. Now it's just one step at a time. That's the discipline.
Right.
And I got my dream. I was working on the happiest place on earth. And I started on the film Pocahontas, eventually worked on Hunchback and Mulan, Tarzan, became a director at Disney, Winnie the Pooh, Doc McStuffins, lots of other shows.
Yeah.
And today I live my dream, man. And just like, you know, it's all beginning again. Every day is a new day, new challenges, right?
I was going to ask, what are some of your dreams today?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, my if you could have gotten me a time machine to go back and you could see me when I got rejected the second time at Disney, you know, you hear this story and you hear a lot of, oh, he tried this and he got in and he went to the zoo and he did and all this. But what I'm not really sharing with you is a lot of the emotions that go through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people listening right now, you know, when you're working hard at something, which we all are, because that's what life is. When you put your head on the pillow at the end of the day, you have this deflating, right? You have these emotions. What did I accomplish today? What did I not accomplish today? When we wake up in the morning, we think this is the day that I'm going to achieve everything I want to get my life where I want it to be. Today's the day I'm going to go to the gym. Today's the day I'm not going to have sugar after dinner. You know, today's the day I'm going to hit my inbox. My inbox is going to be so empty. I'm going to nail it today. You get that fire in the morning, but at the end of the day, reality, you know, yeah, you accomplished some, and yeah, there's more that you didn't accomplish. And we go through that emotional deflating because it's reality and it's hard. If I could go back to myself and see myself when I didn't get into Disney the second time, I remember I was talking to my sister on the phone one night and she's like, how you doing? I'm like, you know what? I'm not in a good place. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, she goes, you're not happy, are you? And I said to her, Rena, it's her name. I said, Rena, if I could get into Disney and sit at a desk and draw Mickey Mouse every single day, the same drawing of Mickey Mouse, I would be happy. And if you ask 99% of the world, what do you want out of life? Why are you doing it? Why are you working at that relationship? Why are you working at parenting? Why are you working in your career to make money or do? Because you want to be happy. That's what we all want.
Right.
But the truth is, there's something so much sweeter than going for a life of happiness. You see, we shouldn't wake up every day thinking, what can I do to make me happy? That's how children think. Children walk into a store like, what can I get? Take your kid through Target. You walk through that one aisle that's pink and purple that has all that princess stuff. You bring my daughter there, and all she wants is, I want this and I want that.
Right.
But we're supposed to.
For that.
What's that?
I said I get mad at my kids for that, but it's
Yeah,
just
right. It's true. Like, you can't go through life just thinking, what can I get? What can I get? You know, Winston Churchill had an incredible quote, amazing quote. He said, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. You see, at the end of the day, don't go for a life of happiness. Go for something sweeter. Go for a life of meaning. And how do you get a life of meaning? There's only one way. Take responsibility for the world. You know, we talked about movies. We love movies like The Lion King. Lion King is this movie where this character becomes great. He's a king. And by the way, when Simba's young, he says, I just can't wait to be king. Why? Because he wants to do whatever he wants to do. Right. Actually, Mufasa says to him in the beginning, if you remember, Simba, there's more to being a king than getting your way all the time. Simba's like, there's more? Like, what could be better? And then what happens? Spoiler alert. Daddy gets killed. Hopefully you've known that by now, people. If I've ruined it for you, then you deserve to have it ruined, because the movie's like 35 years ago. So dad dies, right? They always kill a parent in the beginning of a Disney.
Well, this is the hero's journey story, right?
Right. Finding Nemo, they killed a mom. By the way, it's amazing how many Disney characters don't even have moms, right? Little Mermaid has no mom. Belle has no mom. Aladdin has no mom.
This could be a whole part 2 for us.
Right. Bambi, right? They shot his mom, right? But if you go back to Lion King for a second, Simba can't wait to be king. Father dies. Simba goes off to Hakuna Matata world. Hakuna Matata, remember? Hakuna Matata, right? What a wonderful, right? He goes off there, lives there. Hakuna Matata means, what does it mean? Do you remember, Greg?
Means something happiness.
It means no worry. There you go. It means no worries. You know what no worries means? No responsibility.
Correct.
That's what it's like when we're on vacation.
Right.
Hakuna Matata world is like there's waterfalls. It's flourishing. It's beautiful. He sleeps on a hammock. He sits in a jacuzzi. That's what we all want. We all want that. If you think about it, we all work hard for the week because we want to get to the weekend, right? We want to get to the weekend, but in reality, that's not how we should approach life.
It's true.
You rest over the weekend to get the energy to go back to the week, because that's the real work. That's what meaning is. And who shows up, Greg, at the end of the movie and finds Simba there? Do you remember who shows up?
Where in Lion King?
Yeah, in Lion King. Who shows up when he's
Asin?
It's Nala, remember?
Yeah.
The girl, the lioness. She's not a princess. She's just a lioness. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I know it's a Disney movie. You think she's a princess. I get it.
It's in the Disney movie. Yes.
The new Disney princess is Nala.
Yes.
Yeah, she shows up and she's like, Simba, you got to come back with me.
Right.
He's like, no, I'm staying here. Go to Matata.
Right.
She's like, no, you don't understand. Scar's taking over everything. And if you don't come back with me, everyone's going to die. And you are responsible. Then you know what he says? Hakuna Matata. I'm staying right here. You know what she does? She leaves him. She leaves him there. She goes back. He's left alone, reflecting. Rafiki comes over, hits him on the head. He sees his father's reflection in the clouds, whatever. Remember who you are. Simba goes back, defeats Scar, and Lion King becomes the biggest animated movie of all time, BF, before Frozen. Not because we love movies about lions, but because that movie gives us a taste of what greatness really is. You know what it is? Greatness is waking up, taking responsibility for the world. Each one of us listening today, take a moment, realize that you're unique, realize that each one of us has passions and abilities that are unique to everyone else. And don't wake up with the goal of how can I utilize those passions to make me happy? No, it's how do I use those passions and abilities to impact humanity? Because when I do that, I'm living a life that's not happy. I'm living a life of meaning. Because happiness is always dependent on outside experiences. Oh, I'll get this that will make me happy. Ask that for kids. Oh, if I'm in my work, if my career goes this way, I'll get happy. No, a meaningful life has nothing to do with what you accomplish. It has to do with what are you trying to accomplish? And where do I take responsibility? Wherever I have the ability to respond. That's what the word responsibility means, the ability to respond. You know, I host a podcast called Life of Awesome, as you mentioned earlier. And one of the most incredible, first of all, the first guest I ever had on my podcast is The Real Rudy Rudiger.
No way.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable episode. So you got to check that out. And those of you listening,
Sure.
and you got to hear his story, and you have to hear his reactions when I explained to him how his story changed my life. That's insane. But one of the most extraordinary humans that I spoke to is George Foreman, the boxer, the grill guy.
Right.
The guy made $138 million the first year on the grill. Heavyweight champion of the world 2 times, right? You remember this guy?
Sure. Yeah,
He's
the man.
He's the man. So I go through all this stuff with him. And at the end of the episode, I said to him, George, what's your legacy that you want your kids to remember about you? George, what's the legacy you want the world to remember about you? Without batting an eye, he says, there's one thing I want humanity to know. I loved human beings. That's it. I tried to make a difference. He didn't say, I want them to remember that I worked hard and I persevered and I became successful. He didn't say, I want them to know that if you push through hard, you can have abundance and everything you want in life. He didn't say anything like that. He said, there's one thing. When I walked down the street, I smiled at another person. I changed their day. That's the impact I wanted to make. And that's why I do what I do, Greg, whether it's my speaking or my animation or my podcast. I try in my small way to make an impact and encourage other people to do the same.
And I think you just answered, we normally wrap up the show with what do we all need to do to be better humans? But I think you just nailed it, which is like, can we wake up each day and make a small impact, a positive impact on people? I love the fact you talked about responsibility. It's something I've been talking a lot about. In fact, it was instilled in me at a very young age, which is
beautiful.
Standing up and being responsible. You would talk about actions, just keep taking these actions and these steps forward, perseverance, the Rudy story. But, your story is also one of resilience. And what's interesting about resilience, and I often say this, resilience is this outcome. It's not this step that you get. It's not like, oh, I do this and then I'm resilient and then I move forward. It's
right.
Being able to do what you keep doing, which is be rejected and continue. Man, Saul, I could listen to you for another 5 hours. But, we're going to have to schedule a part 2, a part 3, and a part 4 for this. Saul, you're amazing, man. If the audience wanted to find out more about you, if they wanted to come see you speak, if they wanted to listen to your podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, go to my website would be a great portal to start. It's Saul, Saul, Blinkoff.com. So go to saulblinkoff.com. From there, you can get a taste of the speaking, the animation, the podcast. Everything's on there. Check out the podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you listen to podcasts. And then also check me out on Instagram and share with other people. If there's people out there that you think would be motivated or want to hear tools for growth, and every episode, my podcast is either an interview or me sharing ideas about marriage, relationships, raising kids. I talk a lot about parenthood. It's for every age, teenagers. They're clean episodes, and it's something that I promise will have tools that you'll love. And Greg, you love movies like I do. And in every episode that I share ideas, I'm always using movie clips to share life wisdom from film. So you'll hear those clips from movies like Few Good Men and Groundhog Day and all these, Dead Poets Society and Gladiator. I bring these clips in and I use them to show life wisdom from film. Greg, I can't thank you enough for having me, and all of your audience who tuned in to listen today. I urge each of you to wake up with that goal of not just settling for a good life, not just settling for a great life, but really shooting for a life of awesome. Thanks for having me.
That's amazing. That's Saul Blinkoff. Check out his podcast, Life is Awesome.
Life of Awesome.
Life of Awesome. And,
there you go.
Of course, saulblinkoff.com to check out everything else.
Perfect.
We're going to drop all your information in the footnotes. Saul, thank you once again. The show once again is about, speaking to amazing human beings so we could all be a better human tomorrow. So I think your story and lessons and experiences have provided a lot of that. If you like today's episode, don't forget to like it, subscribe it, share it, and we will see you next time. Hey, thanks for listening today. And if you enjoyed today's episode, you're going to love the next one.